Alright, so for today, what we are going to do is continually build off every day's work. Yesterday, we wrote the line of fit. We just put that line in between all the points. Today, we're going to learn how we take that line that we made and how we write an equation off of it. And it's very, very simple. So today, in our practice, we're going to do all of our steps that we've done thus far. So we're going to do one fresh example of everything. When we're writing the equation, the biggest thing is you first have to take your information, you have to plot them on the coordinate graph. Then we made our line of fit. To write the equation from your line of fit, we are going to choose 2 points on the line that we drew. They have to be on that line. Okay? You use those to find slope. We're going to estimate our y-intercept. And then we write our equation like last semester in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Now, this is not very difficult. It sounds like a lot, but when we go through the steps together, it's not too bad. So, go ahead and open up your foldable to equations of line of fit. Equations for line of fit. It should look like this. The first thing we're going to do is practice just 2 examples of finding slope. We're going to do number 1 together, and then I'm going to give a sucker out for whoever can do number 2. Slope, like we learned last semester, M stands for slope. Slope is y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. So, the one I want you to write down, you don't have this listed, you have to write in your foldable, and you can write it on this yellow page to show your work right here. Let's write down the first set of points. -3, 3, and 0, 1. What I'm going to do is I want to make sure that we remember when we have coordinates, which one's which. The first one's always x, the second one's y. X, y. That's how coordinates are always listed. Always x first, then y. When we're identifying which one's which, well, this one came first, so it's x1 and y1. We know what came first, if you want to get technical, because -3 is farther to the left. It's less than 0 with our axis, if you think on your x-axis. So this would make this x2, y2. Remember, that little 1, that little 2, all that means is which one is which. Okay, I'm going to look at my y2 and y1, and we're going to subtract them. So I would do -1 minus 3. That is how we first find our first part of slope. It's rise over run, so you do your y, the difference of your rise. Then I'm going to do my x's. x2, x1. So 0 minus 3. And we subtract them. -1 minus 3. Be careful, think about this before you shout out your answer. But if I go back 1 and then I go 3 more back, what would I get? -4. And 0 minus 3, -3. Which means, oh, I made a mistake. Give the sucker to anyone that can point out my mistake. Savita?
I think when you did like -1 minus -3, you didn't put the negative before 3.
Well, this 3 was positive.
Oh.
Miles?
When you do 0 minus 3, it's a -3. So make it a positive.
This was a -3. So this should have been 0 minus -3. So I wrote my equation on it. I like that. Copy. 0 minus -3. Because we're always subtracting, and then I put the number, it was a -3. Subtracting a negative is like adding a positive. So this should have been positive 3. My final slope is negative 4/3. And that's perfect. That's rise over run. That's okay with us. Okay, you're going to try number 2 by yourself. And then I'm going to give Sucker who can kind of come up and do it. So here's X. There's Y. Here's X2. There's Y2. Even though you have it up top, I'm going to write it here. Y2 minus Y1. X2 minus X1. Go ahead. I'm going to pause the video.
That's the other tie. Oh, tie hill.
Alright, Ty, explain what you're doing while you're doing it. Pay attention because someone might get a sucker for another part.
Okay. So.
Wrong.
I'm so mad.
No.
Y2 minus Y1 is 4 minus 1.
Good. That's perfect.
And then X2 minus.
Hold up, where's the negative?
There wasn't a negative yet.
Negative 4.
X2
So
minus
the top was
X1
Y2 minus Y1, so 4 minus 1.
is 2 minus negative 4.
Very good. So, if you can't hear what she said, on the bottom she was doing X2 minus X1. She did 2 minus negative 4. So it's like adding. Good.
How did I
Oops.
get 8?
Okay, good job, Ty. So, 4 minus 1 is 3. 2 minus negative 4 is like 2 plus 4, which gives us 6. So we get 3/6. What do we have to do now? Avery. Okay, go simplify. 3 is common, so our slope, almost got it. Our slope is 1/2. Okay. Let's look at today's assignment now. We're going to go through everything we've done thus far on this one example, and we're going to add in how we write our equation at the end. So we want to make sure we get through all this. So they went out and did some research. And the research that they want to compare is every year they were counting up how many black bears were being killed on the road by car accidents. How many black bears were getting run over? Now, it probably isn't in Missouri or Nebraska. It's probably somewhere where there's more black bears.
Asia.
So, I see our years 1 through 17 and 30 through whatever. So, we want to create a scatter plot, and we want to know, is there a correlation between the amount of black bears being killed as time goes on? So, what is the first thing we do once we have our data? Once we've collected our data, what way?
You put them, like one is X and then one is Y.
Okay, which one's X?
The year.
The year is our X. This one is our Y. Okay? Actually, I'm going to use separate colors so when I do our scale, you can see that. Okay. We have year Y, or year is X, Black Bear Road kills Y. We now have to create our scale to plot this. How do I make my scale for X? Troy? Yeah. So we first find our range. Here's my high number, 17. My low was 1. So I'm going to say 17 minus 1 was 16. And why are you dividing by 12?
Boxes.
Yeah, there's 12 lines we're going to use. We're going to cheat right now. Not really cheat, but we're going to go away from this. Pay attention, please. The reason we're not going to divide by 12 is 16's almost to our 12. And this information on the x-axis is a little bit special
There's 17.
because it's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's going up by 1 every time. So I don't want to add by decimal or anything. I'm going to go ahead and make the decision on my scale, me doing green, that I'm just, you always start at 0, but I'm going to skip count by 2s. I'm going to go ahead.
Mr. Fizzle.
What?
You said there's 12 options.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I thought you meant like the.
Oh no, not your data. You count how many lines on your coordinate graph. So I'm gonna skip count by 12. I thought you planned on giving you a badge. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip count by 2s. You should all be doing this on yours. I've done 2. I'm going to go ahead, while you guys are doing that, I could show if I would have divided by 12. I could have done 16 divided by 12 is 1.3 continuous. And that's where I'm going to decide, instead of skip counting by 1.4 or 1.5, I know all my data came out to even numbers. So that's why I'm skip counting by 2s. So I'm going to say I made this 2 for my scale. Okay, let's go ahead and do our Y scale. Troy, you told me how to do our X scale. Where's my sucker?
There you go. Fill it out.
Oh my god.
What is my, how do I find the scale for Y? Wait.
Okay. You subtract the biggest one from the lowest.
Okay, what's my largest value?
129, 30, and 30.
Okay.
And then you get the number and then you divide that by
Hold on, let's do that.
11.
So 129 minus 30 is 99. Remember, that was my range. And then wait, you said I'm going to divide my range by what?
11.
Okay, we're going to do 12.
Okay, we're
I
gonna
know
do
you 12 because we have our 12 lines. Which equals 99 divided by 12 is 8.25. That means that is our minimal scale. It has to be at least 8.25. What should I change this to?
It's actually in platinum, the same thing.
Wait, focusing. What should I change my scale to? Oh, still on you, wait.
Sorry, I got caught up in hand tapping.
So once again, we had got our range was 99. We
Oh, yeah.
divided by our 12 lines. Our scale has to be at least 8.25, but we are going to make it what?
10.
We're going to make it 10. Why 10 and not 9?
Because 10.
But
It's easier to count on. 9 would only go up to 108.
10's a landmark number. It's really easy. So I'm now going to start here, but here's the one change we have to make sure we do. With this one, since our first number is 30, remember how we went ahead and started at 30, and if I did not follow my scale in that first line, I put in that squiggly line. Then you should have your scale go up by 10. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to pause. You can do that. So I have now gone ahead and I have my scale. We've actually done about the hardest part of all our scatter plot. Just focus on me, please. I'm pretty vain. I want attention. So, I now done pretty much the hardest part of my scatter plot, which was identifying my scale. Okay? Wait. Put the water bottle away. Focus with me. The next step in graphing our data into a scatter plot, if you look back at your first page or might be the second page that said graphing scatter plots, step 2 was we now have to add a title and label our axis. You always have to make sure you're doing that. So, my title, what is this telling me? What are we graphing? Sure. We're just going to say black bear roadkill. That's actually what this scatter plot's all about. It's about how many black bears are being killed on the road. We label our axes, and this is fairly easy. X is year. So we say year. And our y-axis is black bear roadkill. So I'm going to say number of black bears. So there's my 2 labels. My y-axis, I said number of black bears killed, and my x-axis was the year. Okay, let's see if someone can get this one for the sucker without shouting out. I won't choose you if you shout out. So far, we've taken our data that we've collected, and we had to create an x-axis scale. We created a y-axis scale. Now we've done a title and label. What do we do next? T?
Oh, we take the, we do 1 and 30.
What do you mean 1 and 30?
Graph 1, 30, and 1.
Good. I'm going to graph 1 and 30. What about the rest of them? We graph all of them. Now we take our data and we are going to plot them. So, once again, I'm going to pause my video. And I want you to do this as well. So, I'll leave it recorded for this first one, but I'd see 130. 1 is halfway in between. And 30. So I should have a dot there. Okay, I'm going to pause. Go ahead and plot your data. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and start recording again. This is about what your graph should look like. I've got the points in, roughly, hopefully as accurate as I could. Yours should have looked something similar to this. After we've plotted our points, we then want to ask a couple questions that's going to help us with our interpreting later. But we want to identify the correlation, gap, clusters, outliers. So what type, if you can answer these 4, that's going to be our sucker. So first question, you have to do all 4. So we have to look at this now. Ainsley, what type of correlation do we have? Okay, it's positive. We're going up and to the right. Positive correlation. Positive correlation. Then here's our data. It's going up like this. This is our trend. Is there a gap?
No.
Okay. So we'd say no gap. Okay. Looking at where everything's at, do we have any clusters?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to say no gap, no cluster. Do we have any outliers that don't fall with our trend?
What's a cluster?
Clusters where a bunch of them are like sitting on top of each other. And we really don't have an outlier. To tell you the truth, right now when we go to work tomorrow on interpreting this, we're going to start thinking about this and saying, well, hold on, if there's no gaps, no clusters, and no outliers, then our information is pretty consistent. Okay? Here's what we got to do now. the last piece that you have to do is now we have to put in our line and write the equation. So you did that yesterday. You're going to make your line of fit. Use a straight edge as straight as you can. And I'll make mine
Oh God.
something. So I should have something similar to this. Maybe your line's just a little bit different. I'm gonna fix one just a little, just because I'm kind of being picky. But okay. Alright. Guys, you should have your line in there now. Your line should look something halfway similar to mine. Try to cut through our points. Here's the last part that we have to do. How do we write our equation for our line of fit? That's going to be your homework. Your assignment is going to be looking at your homework, those 3 graphs that we've done every day, and you have to figure out what is the equation for each one of those 3 lines that you did on your homework yesterday. Here's how. First thing we have to do is we have to follow our line and find 2 points. So I'm going to follow this, and I'm going to look for, on my line, 2 points that I can know. Like, I know that point for sure, and mine's going to be pretty close. To be honest, you might change your trend line just a little bit if it's not fitting, but we're going to estimate. I'm going to say I know that point. Okay? I know mine's not exact. What I would do if I was you, when you're making it, kind of pay attention to your line and make sure you go through a couple points that you know for sure. Okay? Now, once you have those points, you're going to identify them from left to right. So my point, if I said it was through this one, I would have said, oh, this one's pretty much like 8, and even if I don't use for sure, I could say 8 and 58. We'll say that's fine. This point is 8 over 58. 8, 58. That's one point that is definitely on my line. The other point was 1280. So, did you draw your line of fit? Okay, follow your line of fit, and you want to choose 2 points that you can identify what their coordinates are. 12 is 88. Okay, good point that you're making there. Troy is saying, he was a little confused, that 12 is supposed to be 88 because if you look up here, 12 is 88. But did that point, 1288, land on my line of fit? No, so we're not going to use the data up here. You have to look at your trend line. So you have to pick 2 points that are on your line. So the 2 points, I've highlighted them. That's why we chose them right here. I chose this point and this point. And I'm saying that's about 858 and 1280. We now find the slope. Finding the slope, y2 minus y1, what we just practiced at the beginning. 80 minus 58. all over 12 minus 8. Now, you might not be copying my number because your line of fit might be different than mine. That's why you have to be looking at your line and choosing 2 points on your line. Not just mine. We can have different answers, but they will be similar. Your line, I'm going to say that again. Your line might have been angled just a little bit different. So all you do is follow your line and pick out 2 points that fall on your line and write them down. We are then finding the slope of those 2 lines, or those 2 points. 80 minus 58 is 22. 12 minus 8 is 4. I can simplify this, divided by 2. For me, I have found out that my slope is 11 over 2. Now comes the easiest part. I have to write my equation. My equation was supposed to be y equals mx plus b. So, I'm going to replace my slope and my y-intercept. Y equals, my slope I found was 11 over 2. X. We are then going to estimate what we feel like our y-intercept is. To do that, follow your line down, and where does it cross the y-intercept? When it does, what was that y-coordinate? For today, in this example, we are going to say our y-intercept is 0. Can anyone tell me why they feel like our y-intercept would be 0 on this example?
Because like it's at an angle, so the angle that it goes at, it doesn't hit any line.
Okay, it did because we had that little scale part. There's something else with our data.
There is no 0 point.
We didn't have, if we started at 0, since we started at year 1, year 0, when we weren't calculating, we had nothing. So really, on ours, we would have had plus 0. We don't have to write plus 0. So my equation is y equals 11 half x. Your equation might be something a little bit different. Honestly, in the first class, 4th hour, my trend line was a little bit different. Ours came out to 4. So we had y equals 4x. Just because when we did our line, we just had an angle just a little bit different. That's going to be the hardest thing I have with math. This is one of those things in math that there's not just one set answer. So I'm going to repeat this step one more time because you're going to do it for your homework. For your homework, you're able to still go back and look at your line of fit, whatever you had, to write your equation. Follow your line. Be looking at your line. Find 2 points. If I'm looking at this one, I might say, I'm going to use this point right here, and I'm going to use this point right here. You write your 2 points down that are on your line. Identify the slope. That slope goes into your equation y equals mx plus b. Here, I'd have to estimate where do I think my y-intercept is going to be. And that is your b. Okay. I'm going to stop there for today. Your homework for tomorrow. You go to the homework page. There was our 3 graphs that we went ahead and did. We did our line. You need to write the equation for each one. Okay?